Hello and welcome to Chaos to Clarity, the podcast that's your compass to navigate the exciting world of service-based businesses.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Chaos to Clarity podcast. I am so excited to be here. My name is Maggie. I am your business mentor.
I'm your host, Maggie, your go-to
expert, and I help you generate more leads and sales
in the service-based
using your human design so that
a photography
you can work
business,
smarter,
a yoga
not harder.
studio,
And today, this is one of my favorite topics to talk about.
Cracked the code
we're talking
to
about
consistent
burnout by
income
design, and we're
without
talking
all
about
the
this
chaos
because
and noise.
number one,
So get ready
I
to
feel like
increase your
burnout
business growth,
is a buzzword.
connect with
Now,
your ideal
hear me out on
clients,
this
and find
because
ease in
I think
both
a lot
business
of
and
entrepreneurs,
in life.
a lot of
It's time
people
to turn your
will just blame
frustrations into
burnout for
inspiration
all the
and your
things that are happening.
chaos
They'll blame
into
the burnout
clarity.
and they'll
So
blame
go
the
ahead and grab
algorithm
your coffee,
instead
a
of
pen and
actually doing
paper,
something
and
to
let's
fix it.
dive
So
into
today
the
we're going
journey
to talk
of
about
building
burnout
your
by
dream
design.
service-based
We're going to talk about
business
what
together.
it looks
Are you
like
ready?
for
Let's
each
go.
type as they experience burnout. So things like symptoms and why it happens. But then we're also going to reframe the burnout, right? Because a lot of people will say, I'm in burnout. Nothing is working. But they don't actually do anything about it. And I want to help you do something about it. That is something that I absolutely love to talk about and to help people do, is to step out of that burnout, to understand why it's happening and to avoid it. Now, we're obviously not going to always avoid burnout, because here's the thing. Burnout, like energy, you have so much of it. You need to rest. You need to complete the cycle. But also there are going to be times where you have to put in more work into your business. There's going to be times where it's going to feel like less work in your business. So, finding that balance, knowing that there's going to be ebbs and flows, those are things that you're going to just experience as a human being. So I just want you to keep that in mind. And I also don't want you to feel afraid of burnout. Now, I'm not saying go forth and just bust yourself into burnout, but what I am saying is just understand what that looks like and understand that a lot of times burnout is probably happening because what you're doing is misaligned for your energy. And what that can really mean is you're probably just piling on too many things, not giving yourself a chance to complete the cycle of work, right? So if you think about a 24-hour day, we spend hopefully 6 to 8 hours in bed resting. Now, if you're not navigating those hours correctly, you may be experiencing misalignment there. So I would love for you to grab a pen and paper. This is going to be an amazing episode for anyone who wants to learn these little tidbits about their human design. Now, before we get into it, I want to give you a quick CTA. So if you have not already grabbed the Magnetic Client Blueprint, you can go ahead and click the link below. It's going to be in the show notes. This is a free guide that's going to help you decode your energetic design and start to build a business that feels better and works better. So the link is in the show notes below. Make sure you go and grab it, because that blueprint is gold. Now, this blueprint is also the first, 4 steps in my signature strategy call. And what that strategy call is, we go through your whole human design and we look at the different elements that really help you connect better with your audience. So we go through things like, is your offer aligned? Are you coaching or mentoring or advising from your open centers where you have more ebb and flow of energy, where you can get curious and ask the questions, right? Are you utilizing, some of your gates or your channels? Like, what are you using? What aren't you using? And how can we bridge the two? But also, how can I help you develop a strategy? Because it's one thing to look at all this stuff. It's a whole other thing to develop your strategy and how you're going to go about it. Because really, I know you might not like to hear this, because I know the bro marketers say this, but numbers don't lie, right? And I don't mean this from a go and message 100 people and see what happens. I'm just saying what you're putting out and what you're getting back in can be really, really helpful in terms of lead generation and bringing people from that cold or cool or first kind of connection point to a warm, to a hot, right? There's definitely a flow that happens there. And a lot of times what happens is we get so excited as entrepreneurs to just get our offer out there that we often don't look at the client journey, which is part of your strategy. It's part of the backbone of your business. And a lot of times burnout can come for anyone because they don't have a strategy in place. So the magnetic client blueprint is going to get you started on that strategy. And then a strategy call with me is going to get you solidified on that strategy. And then working with me in a one-on-one or group basis, that's going to really help you hone in and fine tune that strategy. So with all that said, I hope you have a pen and a piece of paper because this is going to be gold in this podcast. I just want to say I'm so thankful for you being here. I'm so thankful for all the likes, the shares, the comments. So make sure you comment your favorite part, either comment below or find me on Instagram. My handle is down below. It's at Maggie Lynn with 2 N's mentoring. And let me know what your favorite part of the podcast is, what resonated with you most. So we're going to start this podcast off with the manifestors, right? And I just want to remind you, manifestors, you are not lazy. You're likely depleted. And what burnout can look like for you, these are just a few of the symptoms, is you're ghosting everything and everyone. You're just canceling all your plans because you've had the burst of creation and now you want this long extended crash or rest, right? And like I said before, it's important to take rest, but it's also important to understand your cycle of evolution in your business, right? Like what that cycle of rest and work can look like. So manifestors, you're probably also feeling a creative block. You might be feeling rage or irritation. You might even be saying things like, oh, I'm just so angry. And I want you to pay attention to the words that you're saying because oftentimes the words that you're saying can give you cues about your burnout. Now, I will say that I probably was just in burnout, right? Because I took a couple of months away from social media to rearrange all the things. So this is still very fresh for me. And I really do feel like as a human, we will experience burnout multiple times. And I have, right? Some people, it gets really bad and they end up in the hospital. For some people, it's not, and you just need a break. And I feel like when you're at that point, that is a really great point when you're like, oh, if I could just take a break. That's your body, your natural energy giving you a cue saying, hey, ding, 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 something's happening. Let's take a look at it, right? Okay, so manifestors, why does burnout happen for you? So a lot of times because manifestors are initiating from impulse, that's where this comes from, right? It can come from doing things that you're not obligated to do, things that aren't checking for you. And a way you can figure out if things check for you, you can obviously use your authority. You can also use muscle testing, which is really great. So, there's a number of different ways to do that. I might go into that in a future episode. Let me know below if you want me to get into muscle testing and some of that stuff, because it can be really interesting if you're not really sure how to tap into your authority. Muscle testing can help you. So manifestors, you're initiating from impulse. You're initiating on things you're not obligated to, right? So a lot of times manifestors, you're often over-informing, you're over-performing, and you can't sustain that energy, right? Your energy as a manifestor comes in bursts and you need rest in between the burst or surge, or else you'll just fry, right? Like you'll just get into this like franticness. And I've seen the franticness. And the thing is, I feel like we probably know before we realize that we're in burnout, right? Because I know that I did a couple of months ago where it was like, my eye is twitching for 3 months straight. Something is wrong, right? Something is wrong. Or something is misaligned. It's not necessarily wrong. It's just doing too much a lot of the time. So manifestors, I want you to remember that rest is part of the process. Like it's part of the cycle of work, of being a human. And I do say this to anyone and everyone who has ever worked with me. Remember, rest is part of your process of work, of being. And knowing that you need rest is really important and really crucial because it protects your inner peace. So manifestors, informing and rest both protect your inner peace, and you don't owe constant access. You are giving clear direction. And that's because you are here to initiate, right? You're here to kind of say like, hey, here's what you can do. Here, go. And other people are meant to go and act on that. So for a manifestor, right, an affirmation that you could use is informing protects my peace. I don't owe constant access, just clear direction. And if you can make sure that you're giving clear direction, people will respond to that. I promise you. So next we're going to get into generators. And generators, I want to remind you that saying yes too long will equal burnout, or too much, right? Saying just yes all the times. And manifesting generators, this one is also probably going to hit home for you because we are part of both manifestor and generator. So for generators, your signature burnout symptoms look like feeling stuck, you're tired, you're frustrated. You might also find yourself saying, I feel so frustrated. Why is everything so frustrating? Nothing's working. You might find yourself saying that. Again, tune into what you're saying out loud, right? What are the things, even if you don't have a defined throat center, what are the things that are coming out of your mouth? So generators, if you're staying in jobs or offers or clients that no longer light you up, that can lead to burnout, which is why it's so important to check in with your offers. And I'm not saying change them all the time, right? But what I am saying is have dedicated time to check in and be like, does this offer still align with me? Does it still light me up, right? Does it still check for me? So generators, also, you're really great at overriding your gut responses in favor of should. So saying, I should really do this, or I should really do that, or I should, right? You start shoulding yourself. And then also generators, grinding in something you used to love, but you don't anymore. So generators, you're really great at doing the work, doing the thing, right? Nose down, head down, doing the work. That is where you excel. And if that thing isn't lighting you up anymore, which is a common theme that I see among a lot of online entrepreneurs, especially spiritual entrepreneurs or heart-centered entrepreneurs, where, you're like, oh, I should just stick with this, but I'm really excited about that other thing, but I just want to stick with this right now, right? And you can just tell, you can hear it in people's voices. So why, generators, does burnout happen for you? So honestly, generators, you will burn out when you stay committed to the wrong thing out of guilt or fear or loyalty. And, this is definitely something that, again, I've seen myself in my clients. I've experienced some of this, right? Like staying in the wrong thing. My corporate job, I would say, like, I stayed in that job a lot longer than I probably, quote unquote, should have, because I was scared that I wasn't going to make it, quote unquote, as an entrepreneur, right? I felt guilty for leaving a team, even though the team was not my favorite place to be. I felt guilty taking myself out of the team because I did so much work in that team. Now, for generators, your sacral is probably honestly whispering no, but you ignore it because you've already probably said yes in your head. And I talked a little bit in the last episode about how, if you're experiencing burnout, if you're, like in this like headspace, especially with an open head or ajna, right? Your brain loves to say yes. Yes, of course, I would love to do that. Yes, of course. Yes, 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 yes. And for me, I have gate 29, which is the yes gate. That is my sun, my personality sun gate, which is 70% of my personality. I am literally hardwired to say yes. Even, my personality earth, my design sun, my design earth, my entire incarnation cross, those top 4 gates, I am hardwired to say yes. And my job is to understand what is actually yes and what is actually a no. So I know firsthand what this feels like, even though I'm not a pure generator, but this is something that I help clients do. I help them get out of shoulding themselves, and I help them step into understanding how and what their body, whether that's a sacral or splenic or solar plexus or, like whatever that is, whatever authority that is, I help them understand how to say yes and no, right? We say yes to the things that actually light us up. We say no to the things that are kind of just like, it sounds cool, but it just doesn't feel like it's for me, right? So I want you, if you're a generator, to understand that your superpower is sustainable energy, but only for what lights you up. And I want you to get really curious about what does it feel like to be lit up, even if you're not a generator. This is for all the types. What does it feel like to be lit up, to be excited, to be like, oh my gosh, I can't wait. Get in a candy store, right? Like I get goosebumps thinking about some of the things that I get to do in my business. I want you to have that too. So a reframe that generators can use, right? My energy is renewable when I'm aligned. A sacral no is just as powerful as a sacral yes. So it's really important to start listening, especially if you're an emotional authority, right? Because emotional authorities, you have the sacral yes, but you also have to listen for that wave of your emotional solar plexus to answer. So understanding how you get aligned, but also understanding how that energy feels and understanding what that feels like for you is going to give you so much more power. And honestly, you know what? Saying no to things, it's okay to say no. And I said this the other day to one of my clients. It's okay to say no if it doesn't align for you, because that is also being in integrity. That is speaking your truth, to say, no, thank you. This is a great offer. I love what you have here, but you know what? It just doesn't align for me. And it doesn't have to come from a place of guilt or fear, like, oh no, this person is going to hate me. It's probably okay. Right? It's honestly, I would rather someone say no to me and it be an aligned no than for them to say yes and then be freaking out about whatever it is, or not show up, or, default on payments, or whatever that thing is. I would rather have them say no. And that's why, like, when I teach sales, when I teach about sales calls, when I do sales calls with people, that's why, I always give them time and space, but it also helps me to look at their human design and to see, okay, how can I best support your decision-making skills so that you make the best decisions for yourself? And if you're using human design in your business, this is really great to understand and learn how to do, because it gives you so much empowerment. It also gives your clients so much empowerment. Okay, let's get into manifesting generators next. So Mani-Gens, I want you to remember, you are not flaky, you are dynamic. And for me, like, this is just as much speaking to myself, my soul, as it is yours, because sometimes I have felt kind of flaky. Like, I do a lot of things and I have a lot of passions, and sometimes I feel guilty for that. Like, why can't I just sit still for a second, right? So some signature burnout symptoms for manifesting generators. You're dreading your calendar, even though you created it. You're looking at it going, who created this? Who let you create this, right? You're getting bored halfway through your own launch, which, hello. Yes, I've experienced that so many times, right? And I say it with a laugh, but also I say it from a place of understanding and just like curiosity, but also just that full love for you if you're also a Mani-Gen, because I know what it's like to get halfway through a launch and you're like, I'm bored. I don't want to keep going. I don't know how to keep going. I can't do this, right? And then knowing that also, because you're multitasking, again, from obligation and not from inspiration. So manifesting generators, it's so important for you to act on inspiration rather than, again, shoulding yourself. Oh, I should do that. Should do that. No. You want to act from inspiration, not obligation. And manifesting generators, honestly, feeling stuck because you think you have to finish what you started. I honestly can't tell you how many things I have not finished that I've started and got bored because it wasn't aligned for me. Now, again, I want to bring it back to Manny Gens, you're not flaky, you're dynamic. Using that dynamic energy to fuel your inspiration, to fuel your passions, to fuel this. And remembering, Manny Gens, it can be simple. It can be simple, right? If you're a Manny Gen and you're a coach and you're like, yeah, but how do I get people to buy my offer, right? What are the simple steps? What are the 1, 2, 3? Because simple is scalable. And I've talked about this before. Simple is scalable. So if you can kind of boil it down to be pretty simple, you don't have to put everything all in one thing, right? There are probably more little avenues and roads that you can take from something simple than something more complex. And I want you to remember that, right? No matter what type you are here, simplicity is going to be your best way to understand some of the numbers, some of the feedback that you're getting as you're going out there. So Manny Gens, I want you to give yourselves room to pivot. You need the freedom to pivot and to pivot often. And it's okay, right? Like I've had a number of different offers, and the offer that I have right now, the magnetic method, is an offer that I built to be able to pivot within. And I don't mean pivot as in like, oh my God, I'm going to just 180 degrees go the opposite way. I mean some of these like micro pivots where it's like, oh, I'm going to switch this out for that. And I'm going to do this instead of that. And I'm going to talk to this group of people instead of that. That can be pivoting. And honestly, as a Manny Gen, that can feel just as empowering as doing something that is, a bigger pivot, right? So Manny Gens, burnout honestly creeps in when you suppress your sacral urges to change or skip steps or shift directions because somebody told you that you needed to be consistent. Now, I would say Manny Gens are probably somewhere between type A and B. And maybe I say this because I'm a 1-4, right? I'm a 1 line. I love to learn, right? But I will say, my urge to skip steps is like no other, right? Like if I go and buy something that I have to build, like, like a bookshelf, like what's behind me, I'm not going to look at directions. I'm just going to start putting things together. And then when something doesn't fit, then I'm going to go and find the steps that I skipped, right? So like if you're building Legos with me, real hard, real challenging because I like to skip steps. But here's the thing. I allow myself to do that because I don't necessarily have to be, I can honestly get it done faster, even if I'm skipping steps and have to go backwards rather than being consistent, right? So people are going to tell you, oh, you need to be consistent. Oh, you need to do this. And you know what? Yes. And consistency and curiosity for manifesting generators is honestly going to be so much more powerful, so much more empowering because you can base that curiosity on passion and it doesn't have to be predictability, right? In some sense, manifesting generators, similar to reflectors, surprise feels really cool. It feels really good because it's like, oh my gosh, this little strand that I've followed, look at how much cool stuff has come out of here. Look at all this cool stuff, right? And then you get re-excited about the passion. And again, if we bring it back to simplicity, right? Something simple, like take my current offer suite right now. I have 4 things available. I have a freebie. I have a $97 email course. That's 20 leads in 2 weeks. I have a $297 2-hour strategy session that goes with the magnetic blueprint. It goes deeper into that. And then I have a one-on-one offer that is either 4 months or 8 months. So I have a relatively quote unquote small offer suite, but there's so many little shifts and pivots and things that I can go off of And that can scale, right? The high ticket stuff, the one-on-one, that can go to group and one-on-one. I could host multiple groups, right? Some of the middle stuff, right? The lower ticket, the $97 and $297. I have a couple of other things that I have in the works that are courses that can be out there, that can be on Evergreen. So do you see how that can grow if you're a Manny-Gen? Even if you're in a different type, all of that stuff can grow. Now, I know we're talking about burnout and why this is important, simplicity in your offer suite, because when it's simple, then you don't have to worry about whether or not you have room to grow, right? It feels simple, it feels easy, and less decisions equals less burnout in decision making, burnout fatigue, which then gives you more energy back to really focus on the things that you need to focus on. Okay, so we've talked about manifestors, generators, Manny-Gens. Now we're going to get back to projectors. Projectors, I want you to understand your value isn't how much you do. If anything, projectors, I love you so much, but stop trying to act and run your business like a Manny-Gen. A lot of projectors get stuck in this like, ooh, I need to go hard and fast like a manifesting generator or generator. I got to keep up. And that's just not the case, right? So for projectors, burnout can be things like emotional shutdown, bitterness, invisible resentment, right? Where you're like, oh, I can't believe Sally over there. She's doing the thing. I've been doing this longer. How come I'm not further, right? That real bitterness starts to show up for you. And again, I want you to listen to what you're saying. Even if you listen to the thoughts and go, oh, there's that thought, right? Let's capture that and let's reframe it. Let's move through it so that I don't have to freak out about it. So, for projectors, giving uninvited advice and getting ignored, that is going to be one of the fastest ways to burnout for you. So, you'll notice physical fatigue, and in the physical fatigue, you'll notice that no amount of sleep, no amount of rest really fixes that, right? And you often lose motivation for the things that you usually love. So why does this happen for projectors? So projectors, a lot of times, like I said, they burn out when they try to keep up with the manifesting generators or the generators. It's like the tortoise and the hare. So the projector would be more along the lines of the tortoise, right? Where the manifesting generators for sure are the hare, and we are just, right? Like, we're gone. And the projectors are like, oh, I definitely want to try and keep up. But what happens for projectors is they are constantly trying to prove themselves instead of waiting for the invitation. And then your guidance, it just gets wasted and your energy is going to collapse. Now, my oldest daughter is a projector, and what I started doing, and if you've listened to the podcast long enough, you'll know that I initially started getting curious about human design because of my kids. And when I found out that she was a projector, so many things made sense. And I started inviting her to give feedback. Right. And that really lights her up. She really loves to be able to, get that invitation and then offer her advice, so to speak. It's things like, do you want to take hot lunch or cold lunch? Here's what's for hot lunch. And letting her decide. Now, that also might sound really great for any kid, but letting her hear and do, and having that invitation to offer the feedback, to offer what she wants, that really, really gives her the time and space to receive that invitation. And then she feels energized by it. So something that projectors can do to kind of reframe some of this energy is, I'm here to wait for the invitation. I'm not chasing validation. And quite honestly, projectors, when you can see the validation in yourself, right? When you see yourself as that person that you're striving to be, that recognition, that invitation of self-acceptance goes so far, and people start to, again, notice that energy. And that's something, again, like I've said, regardless of your type, when you are in a really good energy spot, your content, no matter where it is going to hit different. It's going to hit better. People are going to notice, people are going to stop, and they're going to feel your energy, and they're going to get excited about this. So last but not least, I know reflectors always wind up getting there last, right? But here's the thing. I've worked with a number of reflectors, but there really aren't a ton of you out there. So if you're a reflector, I want to hear everybody's opinion on this episode, but also I love hearing from reflectors because they're so fascinating to work with, to speak with, right? So reflectors, you can't rush clarity. And now you may be able to make decisions relatively quickly, but you need to know that process for decision making. And if you rush that process, that is going to lead to burnout, right? It's going to be emotional whiplash. You're going to have energetic overwhelm. The times when I have worked with reflectors, I have really had to check my energy, and I'm not saying change my energy, but I've had to pull it back and just give myself a little bit of downtime prior to connecting with a reflector, because I have so much energy. Mani-gens can just come on full force, and that can be really overwhelming, especially after the call. A couple of my clients who are reflectors, I've always encouraged them, hey, after our call, feel free to journal, but also feel free to lay down and rest for a few minutes after, just so that you can let my energy kind of wash off of you so that you can make your best decisions. And that is something that for a reflector is really, really important, because it's really easy for a reflector to get into burnout. So reflectors, if you don't recognize yourself anymore, or you're feeling drained just by being around people, or you're making decisions too quickly and then regretting them, that is also what's going to lead to burnout. So again, making sure you are checking your energy, you're checking whether the thing checks or not, right? And, just before, obviously I'm not a reflector, but my personality, if you would separate the design and personality of my human design, my personality, so my outward facing, how the world sees me, is a reflector. I have no defined gates. Well, I have defined gates, but I have no defined channels. Nope. I'm having a brain fart. I have no defined centers. There's the word. In my personality side of my human design. They're all the design side. So they're all like within. And this is definitely something that's like a little bit deeper as you start to study human design. This starts to become, I would say, easier to understand. But I've always kind of felt like, I love being a manifesting generator, but sometimes it takes me forever to make a decision. And for me, when I look at my design, I feel like that is honestly because my personality, my outward facing self is geared to a reflector, right? So it's going to take me longer. So I've learned to kind of sit back and sit with things to know, is this right? Even though I'm a sacral authority, right? Like I have that sacral whisper, but then I also need to listen to, okay, is it a sacral whisper because I'm designed to say yes? Or is it a sacral whisper because I'm actually a yes? So all that to say, reflectors, why does burnout happen? Because you absorb everything, all of the things, right? All of your centers are open, which means energy can ebb and flow, which is great. And it also really gives you this, like, it can give you the ick, right? And I will say this is, when the last reflector that I was working with, we were talking about consuming like social media, right? Scrolling and things like that. And she was telling me how, like sometimes she gets stuck in the scroll and then she starts to want to change things because she's seeing all this stuff. And now I have an open head, I have an undefined ajna, and I feel that, right? Like I have a number of other open or undefined centers, but I know when I scroll a lot, I tend to then, that's when I want to make the changes in my business. So I have to be really careful about scrolling, about taking in things, because then with the open and undefined head, things just float in, float out, and my ideas are not my own anymore. So reflectors, you tend to absorb everything. So you need space to empty out, to reflect, to reattune, right? To get used to what you have. Otherwise, you're going to get overloaded. It's going to feel heavy. It's going to feel like, oh my gosh, this is so much. So reflectors burn out when you're rushed or surrounded by chaotic energy, which I get. A manifesting as a Manny Jen, right? I get my energy is a lot. And I've always known that. And it's not a bad thing. I used to think it was a bad thing. Like, oh, my energy is so much. People are going to be like, eh. But it's not, right? This is who I am. And I've learned to accept that. So I also invite you to accept who you are, love who you are, like get really excited about who you are, because then again, that energy is going to shift and open and expand for you in ways that you never imagined. So reflectors, something that you can do to reframe. I don't have to know today, but my clarity comes with time, peace, and the right people. And now what I will say for everyone, for all of the types, having a process for working through making decisions is going to be everything for you. So when you understand what that process is, how you make decisions, it's going to keep you out of burnout, right? And making some of the decisions more simple, easy to do, that is also going to keep you out of burnout. Because I would honestly say that burnout and decision fatigue are one and the same. Decision fatigue is a form of burnout, if you will, right? Where, especially if you're a mom and you're like, oh, I have 27,000 decisions to make, and the last one of the day is making dinner, and I don't want to do it, right? So understanding what is the process, what is the way, the SOP, if you will, for making these decisions, it will make your life so much easier. And sometimes some of that can be shared, right? Like if you have a partner, or if you have someone that you're living with, right? Where you can be like, hey, I need you to make this list of decisions, and I'm going to make this list. Cool, right? So something I want you to remember when we're talking about burnout isn't just about working too much. It's also about working against your design. And we all have different energy patterns and rhythms and signatures. And when you learn to honor them, everything else feels more sustainable, more simple, and more magnetic. And when you really take the time to understand yourself, your patterns, your rhythms, your signatures, like all of the things that make you uniquely you, it's going to feel so much easier to relax into that and know that you're supported by your energy than if you're just chaos, right? And that's honestly why I called this podcast the Chaos to Clarity podcast. It's why I've called my coaching and mentoring business the Chaos to Clarity, right? Coaching, because so many times we experience so much chaos and we're just kind of over here like, oh my God, that we don't know how to step out of it because it starts to feel normal. So again, I would love to connect with you on Instagram. So go ahead and hit me up, get in my DMs, slide right into my DMs. Let me know what resonated with you in this episode. And you can find me at Maggie Lynn Mentoring. The link is going to be down below in the comments. So if this resonated with you, your next steps are going to be, number one, DM me on Instagram. Let me know what resonated. I want to hear from you. Number 2, make sure you go ahead and grab the magnetic client blueprint. It's free. It's going to show you how to use your type, your strategy, your profile. It's also going to get into your personality sun gate, which is 70% of you, and your design earth gate, which is what grounds you. Okay. So that's going to be all in the magnetic client blueprint. That is free. Go ahead and download that right now. There's a bunch of things that are included because I can't help myself, but also I wanted it to be so good for you. I had to include everything that I did. And if you need deeper support, right, you can also book a free call with me. And that free call is going to give you some clarity on directions to go. It's going to help you step out of that chaos, out of that decision fatigue. It's going to help you step into your next best strategy. And I want you to be empowered in your strategy. I want you to feel like, oh my gosh, this feels so good. This feels so much like me. I'm so excited for this. So make sure you go ahead and grab all that. The link is below. It's one big link. You can go ahead and grab that. My Instagram is in there. The magnetic client blueprint is in there. The call is in there. Let's talk about it all. I'm so excited to hear from you. I can't wait to talk to you again. So I hope you have the best day ever, and I will see you on Instagram.